This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Okay, before we get started, check out necturegrowth.com. necturegrowth.com. It's free to join, but not for long. Necture is an extension of the roller coaster. It's where you can start your own journey of self-exploration and growth. In Necture, you'll find different topics of interest, daily blogs, affirmations, journal prompts, and you can connect with some of the fantastic coaches that have been on the roller coaster. Soon, we'll be adding videos, meditations, live discussions, and events. Our signature course is a journey of self-improvement, and it's valued at $397. But once you join, it's available to you at no cost. So if you're feeling stuck, if you feel like you need to change and not sure where to start with Necture Growth Network. Come join us. You know you're worth it. Now, let's get on with today's show. Depending on which episodes you've listened to, you've probably caught bits and pieces of my journey, going from shit barrel to starting the roller coaster and launching Necture. To get here, I had to reconnect with my true self because I knew that there was something more that I was supposed to do, be, and have. But it took a journey of self-discovery to begin to reveal my purpose. Joining me today is Dmitria Burby, who did everything right, played by the rules, and checked all of the boxes. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She knew that she had to step back and reassess life. Hi, Dmitria.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I know I've got a bit of background on you, so I know we've got very similar stories. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation. What was happening in your life at that time when you realized, oh, wait a second, something's not right?
Yeah, I had this moment. There's two things that happened. One, I had this moment. I was walking through campus at work and realizing that I could be really successful, continue to be successful in my career, but I would likely lose my husband and my family as a result. And it was a really powerful emotional moment where I thought that is not worth it. I need to reassess my life and figure out how to reconnect with my husband and actually be there for my children in a really present way. And that happened probably 6 or 9 months before I actually left my job. But it was a moment of just pure awakening to the realities of the choices that I was making in my life and the payment that I was making subconsciously or unconsciously actually to have the material wealth, the external accolades, and the self-worth that I was looking for from those decisions that I was sort of mindlessly making.
And it falls back to, we've talked about it many times before on the roller coaster, where there seems to be this imaginary list that we're all following. We're ticking those boxes because somewhere along the line, society has decided that this is what you need to be happy.
Yes.
And then you suddenly realize, wait a second, I didn't know I had choices, or at least in my case, I never thought to stop and ask very important questions. It was 44 when I went through this. I'm now 48. So I was really down the road when I realized that my life was not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like, where were you when that happened?
So I was about 36 when that happened, and very similar story. I I was not the happiest of children. I think just I wasn't. It was a reality of my genetic makeup, maybe. But I thought, well, what I've been told is that if I do well in school and get into a good college and have a good career and find success, that I'll make money and I'll be able to buy a nice house and have a nice car, and I'll find a partner in life, and we'll have children, and we'll create this beautiful life that people talk about having and sort of is the bedrock of the American dream. And so I did all of those things, and I reached this moment that was, oh my gosh, I actually have all of those things. I have a really good job. I have an amazing husband. I have kids. I have a beautiful home, but I'm still not happy. And so it made me realize that the formula that I was taught around acquiring all of these external things was actually not going to deliver the happiness that I had originally been seeking in all of this, and that there must be some different path. There must be some different way of obtaining this happiness that I saw other people have. I just hadn't figured it out yet.
It's like there's this big secret out there when you're on that side of it.
Yes.
It's like you're like, what am I missing? What secret? Why don't I know this secret formula? And it's frustrating.
Absolutely. And really, it's so funny because it's not a secret at all, except for it wasn't part of my upbringing to know how to act with happiness. It wasn't, I mean, we were a working class family. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and my parents really modeled working hard. They didn't model being full of joy and enjoying the moments in life, or, you know, like, we were a hardworking family, and that's how you would eventually find success. So my upbringing was all related around being successful. It wasn't actually around finding happiness. So I didn't know that there was a difference. I thought success and happiness were the same thing. I didn't actually ever realize until I was much older. I mean, probably post leaving my corporate job, realizing that I had connected success and happiness as equal things when they're two totally separate, you know.
Yeah, one doesn't mean the other. Yeah.
Right.
Now, did you feel guilty when you had all of these things and you realized that you were missing something? Did you feel guilty because you're like, well, wait a second, am I just being a whiny bitch here? I've got all this stuff.
Totally. I mean, I live a really, really blessed life. I appreciate that so much more today than I ever did then. But yeah, I mean, I was a little guilty, but more than anything, I was really confused, because if you have everything, and you hear celebrities talk about this a lot, like, I feel like Justin Bieber talks about, like, having everything. You literally have everything at your fingertips, and yet you feel alone, and you're depressed, and you're sad, and you have anxiety, and you're unhappy. It's like, this does not compute in our society today, that you can have everything on the outside, but be unhappy on the inside. And living through that process of really, you know, having everything I could ever need to survive and have a happy life, and just being completely disconnected. It was a really confusing time for me to try and understand what was wrong. And there was a big epiphany that what was wrong was inside of me, that I had to look inside of me for the answer. It wasn't going to come from having a new handbag or having a new car, or, you know, having this many new friends. It really was like, oh my gosh, I have everything. And so there must be something inside of me that is blocking me from enjoying the life that I actually have on the exterior.
No, leading up to that moment of realizing, wait a second, it's not my outer world, it's my inner world. Leading up to that moment, were there any clues that you missed? Because for me, I say that the universe first gives us a whisper. Mm-hmm. And if we don't respond, it speaks louder, and then it shouts. And if you're still not listening, it's going to hit you over the head with a 2x4.
Yeah.
So you,
Yeah.
I had to be hit over the head with a 2x4 multiple times before I started to clue in. So
Mhm.
did you have any signs that you missed that you look back and you're like, oh, why didn't I clue in then?
Oh my gosh. So many, so many. They're like,
You're like,
they're
oh,
infinite. They're infinite in my life. It's like, I think starting from a young child, it's like, how did I miss this? How did I let go of this, enjoyment of life from a young child? And then all through school, college, it was like there were so many opportunities for me to take a different path in life that would have been one where I found happiness sooner. But the reality is that I needed to live life, 36, 37 years of my life where I wasn't happy and where I couldn't access those things so that I could really appreciate where I am today and actually understand the process that I went through in unlocking that so that I can help other people. If I had had it when I was 5 and just continued to be this like lovely, beautiful, happy person, fast forward to who I am today, I would still be happy and it would be probably a very lovely existence, but I wouldn't be in a place where I could help other people. And that's something that's so important to me, is being able to help other people sort of see the light, if you will, but just access that beauty that's within each of us.
yeah, the quote came to mind, something about, when you climb up the ladder, make sure you reach back and help somebody, some sort of quote about that. And that's
Yeah,
what sort of came to mind because, again, similar situation, when I came through it and figured out a bunch of stuff, well, now it's like if I can just help one person, it
totally.
becomes like a driving force, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Where you're
Yeah,
compelled to help people. But it's a bit of a curse because I'm not sure if you find this. You see people, you can laser in on people and you can see where they're stuck
hmm,
and you want to help them resolve it. But if they're not willing to want to fix their problems, you have to just stand back and let them experience their own journey.
absolutely. And that was a challenging lesson for me to learn, that you do really have to allow people to walk their own path. And there's power in being able to hold space for people. There's power in being able to support people and help them through that journey. But they ultimately have to want to change. They have to want to unlock something and do the hard work of looking at themselves, because I can't do it for you. I've tried. I literally have tried to do it for people and it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It
It
doesn't.
doesn't.
Because if they don't hit that point where the pain of continuing on the path that they're on is greater than anything you're going to go through changing, it's just not going to happen. And we
Yeah.
all hit that point. I mean, I'm obviously a slow learner. If I hit it at 44 and you were 36, I, I was just destined to stay on that road just a little bit longer than most people. But going back to when you realized that you
Mhm.
had to create a change, what were some of those steps that you started to implement just to become curious and discover and evolve things?
Well, I think my process actually started maybe 7 years before that moment, that epiphany of like, oh, I really have to make some big changes or I'm going to end up with a life I really don't want. And that was just some introspection around who I was and what are the things in life that bring me joy. And it took me 7 years to get to the point of understanding what did bring happiness into my life. So it was a long journey. And I put a lot of effort into it over that time. But at the time, I didn't feel like I was making all that much progress. But when I look back, I can understand how each of the books that I read, all the therapy that I was doing, like all of those components really helped me get to that moment of realization. But now I really understand that the foundation of this work is boundaries. So setting some boundaries for yourself and self-care.
Oh,
And
self-care.
right. And I talk about self-care a lot, but I think about it more in terms of doing things that actually make you feel good. And for me, what I needed at the beginning of my journey was sleep. I had worked so hard my whole life, and I really never allowed myself to rest. And so often people talk about self-care and it's like, take this amazing bubble bath with candles and flowers and like, or do this like thing for yourself. And I would be like, that feels like a lot of work. That is like beyond what I can do. You know what I need right now? I need some sleep. And my husband would be like, you want sleep? Like that doesn't feel very like self-care.
Oh my God, no. I don't know. I'm not trying to speak ill of men, but I don't think they understand sleep deprivation quite the way women can, because our hormones can screw so many things up.
Right?
And that's why it drives me crazy when you see, whatever you want to call them, life leaders, coaches, motivational speakers, talking about, you have to continuously drive, you have to continuously push, and you have to grind. And I'm like, hell no.
Yeah.
because if I don't sleep, then I can't function. I don't understand the purpose of staying up until 2 a.m, sleeping for 2 or 3 hours, and then getting up and doing it all over again.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Sleep is so critical to me and who I am. I mean,
Oh, you know what? It is to everybody, but I don't think enough value is given to it.
yeah. Yeah.
It's seen as being lazy.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
and it's like, why is it okay to go to bed early and get up early, as opposed to go to bed late and then what they call sleep in?
Sleep in. Yeah.
It's like, if you need 8 hours, however you get them in, just get them in.
Yeah. I mean, my way to actually replenish my sleep was that after I left my job, I took a nap for 3 months straight. Like every single day I took a nap.
Oh, you're so
And
lucky.
right. I mean, it was because I was in this blessed state where I didn't go to another job right away. I left my job. I really decided that my only focus was to rebuild my connection to my husband and my children and my family and my friends, in that order. And I realized that I couldn't do that if I was exhausted. So I really needed to sleep.
Well, that's a good point. No, it's true. What steps did you take to, start to reconnect with your husband, family, kids, friends?
Well, I went from, having my whole identity tied up in my corporate title. And I thought, oh, I am going to just be this amazing wife and mother. Like my whole world is just going to be being this amazing wife and mother. And I left my job and jumped into that, and was very quickly reminded that my kids don't actually want me at their high school. I was reminded by my children. And I was reminded by the high school secretary that parents don't come to the high school.
Oh dear.
And it was a really good lesson for me, because what I was doing was I was just replacing one external identity with another external identity. And the work that I needed to do was to actually figure out who I was. And that was a long journey. It started with meditation, reading books. I mean, all of the basic things that we talk about, now in society, not when I was a kid, but now it's like doing some of those things that helped me understand where I was finding really rewarding, fulfilling, re-energizing time. So if it wasn't sleep, what else in my life was helping me feel like I had more energy? And so I focused in on the things that were doing that for me. And that was, I was working out every day, in a like healthy capacity. So I talked a lot about, well, I don't want to be working out and like have it as a checklist or a check on my to-do list. It had to be something that made me feel good. So if in the morning I was really sore because I worked out really hard the day before, that could be that I did like a 15-minute yoga, or I went for a walk with a friend, or something that was really light touch. And then when I was feeling ready, doing something a little bit more challenging. But it was really about doing things for myself that actually made me feel good, not things that I was doing for myself because I thought that's what I needed to do to take care of me. And that shift was really critical in my own journey.
Have you noticed, you know, once you've gone through your shift, have you noticed how that's influenced or impacted your husband and kids?
Completely. I mean, we are a very different family than we were 3 years ago. I I mean, part of it is that I'm present, I'm home, I'm available. You have one person in your home life that is like stable and the rock and like able to hold space for everybody else. And there's going to be ripple effects. I mean, I think about when I was working in my corporate job, I was gone like 14, 16 hours a day. I would see my kids maybe when they woke up before school, and then right before bed, I wasn't even home to really eat dinner with them. I mean, I just like I wasn't present. Like physically, I wasn't present. I wasn't available to take phone calls from them or text or interact with them. So just the literal shift of being gone all the time to actually being home and available for like a one-on-one conversation as they run through the house or when they're grabbing breakfast or whatever else, like there's no way for it to not shift your family life. It's just not possible for it to not change everything. And then of course we settled into the pandemic, which I know has been so hard for so many people. For me, one of my dreams was that I would get to have dinner every night with my family around a dinner table, and we had never had that opportunity in our lives because I traveled for work before I took my last job, and then I was gone all the time on campus. And so I just never had that. And literally the pandemic happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, I get this gift of dinner around the dinner table with my family every single night. And it was this amazing blessing that we had in that really challenging time of memories and conversation and games that we just would never have had without that, external sort of forcing function.
And because you said high school, so you've obviously got teens, and
Yeah.
depending on where they are, they're sort of looking at embarking on their journey for college or university. Have they learned from you when it comes to happiness and discovering purpose in that? Is that something that they're absorbing from you, or are they a little bit more reluctant to get on board?
We have 3 kids, and I would say, they're sort of all in different places in that journey. For me, I'm really proud of the fact that they have been able to witness me give up my career because I knew it wasn't healthy for me. So give it up for the right reasons and really go through this transformation. And some of the children are definitely like more tapped into what's going on and like more present and like I think are absorbing more of that. The younger you get in the family, I think you're just younger and more impressionable. And then our older one, he is going to be a sophomore in college, so he's sort of already set out on his life a little bit, and there's less, I would say, like immediate influence, but I think that it will hit him later to see one of his parents like go through this and know that it's acceptable, it's possible, and that there's really some inspiration for him that's like waiting to be unlocked down the road.
And on this journey, what are some of the big aha moments that you had that really you can see them as they were a pivot point for you?
I think realizing that knowing who I am is what unlocks happiness for me. So that was the first thing that was just so big for me. The second thing is that I transitioned from an external definition of who I was, of what was important in my life, to an internal definition. So I no longer, I mean, care is a little bit harsh of a word, but I really don't look for other people's opinion about who I am. I know who I am, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with the world. And then it's just a matter of whether that person is accepting of me or not. And that's not about my self-worth. And then I think the sort of third really big thing is that self-worth doesn't come from how hard I work or what I produce. Self-worth is a God-given right. of just being human and existing, that we are all worthy. We're worthy of love. We're worthy to, explore who we are. We're worthy of self-expression. And that does not come with any conditions or caveats. There isn't, oh, you're worthy if you work really hard and produce this much for whatever. It's just, you're worthy, period. Nothing else there.
And again, I think that goes back to the traps of society
Mhm.
where, all through our educational system, we're funneled to be able to tick certain boxes because
Yeah.
that's what our entire education is did you take geography? Check. Did you do history? Check. So it's like you come out the other side and you're pre-programmed for that. And you said that for you, knowing who you really were was key.
Mhm.
What was some of the things that you did to get to know that person? Was that just, was that part of your meditation practice and just reconnecting with yourself, or were there other tools that you used?
I went on a pretty off path journey of finding myself. So it started with meditation and, self discovery through reading and conversations. I ended up falling into a situation where I met a shaman and went on sort of a detour with that shaman to do some deep, spiritual work to understand who I am. I met a lot of people in that shamanic community that helped me really understand sort of the spiritual awakening that I went through. And that then came back around to, okay, how do I piece together this spiritual awareness and the very human realities of who I am? And how do I piece that together into one integrated, cohesive thing that is me, who I am, both, a spirit and a human that exists, here on this earth. So it was a really powerful journey for me and a really interesting place that it's left me of understanding how I balance all of the different, aspects and facets of who I truly am.
And I think that spiritual connection, that realizing that we're all connected, we're all one, whether you call it the matrix or, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. Um, I think that's a really important part of the process. And
Mhm.
that's really when I'm thinking about myself, I think it's at that point that you really start to see that shift
Yeah.
is when you realize, no, 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 we are all connected.
Mhm.
And, that probably is why when you've been through this journey and you come out the other side, it's probably why we're so keen to want to help other people is because we realize that we are the sum of everybody.
Yeah.
And if we can help elevate everybody just that little bit,
Mhm.
what type of difference are we going to make in this world?
Yeah. I mean, imagine a world where everybody was joyful and happy and truly believed that they were worthy and that they were essentially love. Like, what sort of world, what sort of existence would we have? It would be so different if everybody had access to that. And I think what we talked about earlier is it isn't that it's been hidden from people. It's just that it's not what our society teaches. It's not what we're trained to know, not what we're trained to do. And the information is all available to all of us. But for me, it was I read a lot of those books. I saw a lot of those quotes, and none of it made sense until I went through my own journey to really understand who I was or who I am. And then I go back and I read those same quotes or those same books, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not pick up on all of that meaning that was right there in front of us? And so I think part of it is the process of going through those times where you don't understand, you're not connected, and then awakening to this other form of consciousness, this deeper awareness, and then really getting to appreciate it. And so I think there is something beautiful to the process. There's something beautiful to going through those challenges and then being able to appreciate what you have because you've experienced that.
And there is a wealth of information out there. And, you know, if everybody knew how to use the information and had the right support, then everybody would have their issues resolved. But to make these changes and to go through it, it is helpful to have somebody that you can connect with that's been on that journey, that has some tools and resources to help you through. So for anybody listening, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, you can definitely connect to me on Instagram. My handle is at Luminance Healing. You can find me at dmitriaburby.com as well. And I have 2 books coming out this fall. The first book is in September, and it is a memoir of my own spiritual awakening. So if you want to, see the experience through my eyes, or interest, you have some interest in what that might look like for yourself, that's a great book. The second book is really a masterclass on self-discovery. So it is a framework for people to walk through. There's exercises, there's journal prompts, there's personal stories, client stories that walk you through the process of getting to know yourself. And it's what I used to go through my own journey. And I'm hoping it's really helpful for other people to walk through as well.
If you're looking at connecting with Dmitria, make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of her links in there. And Dmitria, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.